Governments. And Lindo, I know in the past, now you taught on this. I think it was like maybe last February. I can't recall. So feel free. I really would love you to interject stuff. It's it's a difficult passage because I'm proud and arrogant, and I don't like people telling me what to do. So again, the text from last week: everyone must submit himself to the governing authorities. And the term submit is hupatasso, which means I rank them as being over myself. It's almost a military term. There is no authority except what God has established. All those no kings rallies yesterday, all over the place. I had somebody really talking me into going, and I said, "Yeah, no, I think I'm okay." The authorities exist, have been established by God, even the ones that we don't like. I remember being very upset when Bill Clinton got elected for the first time, simply because of his pro-choice stance. And I'm thinking, this is not God what I wanted, but God is sovereign. And I could not say, well, Bill Clinton isn't my president. That just doesn't work. So if you rebel against the authority, even the ones that you don't like, and this is written in the context of Rome and Nero and those birds, he who rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. And again, I'm not sure whether that's divine judgment or judgment here on earth from those governing officials. Okay. Rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. If you get pulled over by the police and you're driving, what's going through your mind? What's going through my mind is, okay, what do they do? What do they do? What do they do? Did I signal? Did I say, was I going too fast? Was I going too slow? Because you can get pulled over for going too slow. I didn't know that. My dear friend Ryan was doing 21 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone at 2:30 in the morning, discussing spiritual things with people in his car. He got pulled over. They accused him of driving under the influence, and he blew triple zeros. So, but at any rate, and if you give grief to those people who pull you over, what are you asking for? Grief. Okay, the guy can write you a ticket for anything because there's so many laws. Rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. So if you're going down the highway and you're cresting a hill and you see that blue big SUV thing sitting there, and you look at your speedometer and you're doing the speed limit, you have to worry. If you're not doing your speed limit and you go by him, you're in fear because you're looking in your rearview mirror for that wonderful, beautiful red light coming up behind you. That's when you don't obey. Okay, that's at that point, that is the ruler being out of bounds, and we disobey. For example, in Nazi Germany, you were told to snitch on all the Jews so they could be killed. As a Christian, you must disobey that. And will there be consequences to disobedience? Yes, you could join them at the concentration camp or just be shot in the street. But at that point, we must defy the edict. Okay. Imagine being a Christian in Gaza. You obey as much as you can, but there comes a time where you cannot. Again, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they disobeyed and they took the consequence. Daniel disobeyed and he took the consequence. You want to be free from an authority, then do what's right. He will commend you. I have never been commended by a public official, just so you know. Imagine the police pulling you over, and this happens sometimes, and they pull you over and they say, "You're doing such a good job driving. Here's a dozen donuts from Cops and Donuts. Here you go. Just go enjoy your life." And wouldn't that be fun to do if you're a police officer though? Yep. But yeah. I wouldn't like it until I got the donuts. Then I might enjoy it, especially if I get the cinnamon rolls instead of the donut. Anyway, For he is God's servant to do you good. Now, does every servant that God has do their job faithfully? No, because we look in the mirror and we can understand that concept. Some are really, really bad, wretched, and gross. And who are they subject to? God. Okay. And so God will deal with them. But he is God's servant. He's supposed to bring punishment on the wrongdoer, but sometimes they take bribes and they don't. Therefore, it is necessary to submit to the authorities, not only because of possible punishment, but also because of conscience. We do not want to be known as, oh yeah, them Christians, they're the ones, they break all the laws that they have. You know, they just kind of do what they want. They view themselves, what's that term, sovereign citizens now? They think they don't have to obey any of the laws. It's like, okay, that's what handcuffs are for. We didn't get very far last week. Rulers hold no terror for those who do right, but for those who do wrong. Remember, Paul was writing in a Roman context. When Paul was imprisoned by Rome, should he have been imprisoned? Did he do anything wrong? No. Okay, he did not. I love the where he's in Philippi, and they take him and they flog him, they beat him, and then Paul goes, oh, and we are Roman citizens, by the way. Oh no! Wait. Okay. So, if we're doing what's right, okay, if we're being loving, joyful, peaceful, being forbearing, putting up with people, kind, good, faithful, gentleness, and we're self-controlled, how much trouble are you going to get in? You watch some of these people again. They hassle the police. The police have tasers, they have guns, they have cars, they have radios. They have shotguns, and some of them have got assault weapons, what they call assault weapons, those really fast rifles in their trunk just in case. Hi, how you doing? That's good. Here's all my stuff. After last week, I was just kind of thinking about this, and so I've changed the location of my ID stuff. So instead of my having to reach into the glove box, I now have it right here, so I just go and just have the hands up and say, would you like my license as well? Because that's in my back pocket. I want you to feel safe. So, cooperate as much as you can. Should we pay our taxes? But there are those who say, biblically and constitutionally, you shouldn't have to. Does the IRS care about these things? No. Now, should you seek to avoid legally every tax dollar that you can, say, how do I phrase that? You know what I mean. Should I try to avoid paying every tax dollar they possibly can according to the laws? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. You want to be free from authority, then do what is right. He will commend you, for he is God's servant to do you good. To whom is the one in authority accountable? To God. So therefore, we obey the law, even the ones we don't like. Now, do we have in our situation? I mean, we're such a blessed people, such a blessed nation. Do we have recourse when we feel that the civil authorities are ripping us off or treating us unfairly? Okay. Yeah. Vote, or you can take it to the next level, and sometimes taking it to the next level costs a lot of money, which is a problem within the system. To hire a lawyer is very expensive. My dear friend Ryan, in order to get out of an unjust ticket, he had to spend $4,000 or $5,000. His grandpa came in and helped him out. The officer said that, we observed him weaving in the lanes as he was going, 21 miles an hour in a 30-mile-hour speed limit. And Ryan said, I wasn't. So they played the video, straight as an arrow. Yeah, so anyway, so he did get out of that, but it cost him $4,000 for justice. If the authority does not do his or her job well, what do we do? We what? Okay, vote him out. But what if it's not a person that you can vote out? Okay, sue them. Take legal recourse. Okay, they're not doing their job well. Okay, now let's go to a context, for example, in Russia. Okay, the authorities, or in Ukraine, place where bribery is king. Okay, both nations. What do you do when the authorities are not doing their job well, or they're doing it horribly? Yeah. What if you can't move, Scott? I don't know. You obey as best you can, and if you take lumps, you take lumps. That's all you can do. Suck it up and trust God with it. Words of wisdom from the right side. All right. Go to 1 Peter chapter 2. Yes, yes. These computers, you type it in right, and the computers they just change things. They do. You've noticed that, Sherry? Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, it doesn't affect numbers though. Okay, just starting at 28. Okay, okay. Wait. Hold on. See, one of the twos is wrong. All right. Slaves. Now, slaves, submit to your masters with all respect, not only to those who are good and considerate, but to those who are harsh. Does this condone slavery? No, it does not. What does it do? Okay. Within the culture, most slaves were indentured servants, paying off debts or something. There were some slaves who were slaves because of military stuff. In the structure of Rome, slavery was legitimate. It was legal. There were more slaves, I think, in Rome than there were people who were free, so to speak. So you can, some people would read this employees. If you have a boss, are you sort of a slave to that boss? Sort of. Okay. If you leave, you better be working under a new master. They can fire you. They can do all kinds of great damage to you. They can make sure you lose your home if you lose your job. So this is not an endorsement. It's slaves. How do you work within the system in order to honor Christ? With those who are good and considerate, but also with those who are harsh. What do you do if you have an employer who's a tyrant and someone wants to discuss with you what level of tyranny that employer is inflicting upon others? What do you do? You join them and you bash the person even more. No, what do we as believers do? And in doing that, so you're risking the other person's job. Because, he said that, did he? Or he's talking about me. I think my favorite strategy is you say, wow, that's really tough. Can we just pray about that right now? And you call the person and you pray about the struggle and you pray God's blessing upon the boss, that they would make sure to respond to God's work and treat people fairly, and the employee, that they would work to understand what's going on, because maybe there's things that they don't understand about the decision that the boss made. Okay, so just don't get involved in this. Verse 20. 19. For it is commendable if a man bears up under the pain of unjust suffering because he is conscious of God. But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that we should follow in his steps. So if the rulers are being cruel and mean and awful, pray for them. Pray for those in authority and endure. Suck it up. Really, what choice do you have? Honor Christ in this, because again, you don't want to be in a situation where the rulers are saying, the people I have the most trouble with, the most rebellious people, is the Christians. we want it to be said of these people, why are we picking on the Christians? I mean, they're not hurting anybody. They're just worshiping God. Why are we doing that? So we kind of want the opposite instead of, being seen as rebels. Now, if the government is telling us to do evil and we don't do it, are we rebelling against the government in that respect? I think so. So if I'm known as a rebel for God because I don't do things the government tells me to do that are ungodly, am I being rebellious? Yeah. And I need to be taking the lumps. Okay. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the ticket book. What do you call that? Ticket book, Bob? Okay, citation book. Okay, yes, he does not bear the citation book for nothing. He is God's servant to bring punishment on the wrongdoer. Okay. There are times when we are speaking with people who have some manner of authority over us. We call up on the telephone. We have a dispute with the insurance company. We need to understand that the person that we're talking to has no authority over the situation. They're sitting in front of a computer screen and they're reading data. And they're telling you the rules that have been set up that their authorities have told them this is the way it is. Now, the authorities, they're supposed to be looking out for my good, for my benefit. Are they really? Okay, they're probably looking out for the corporate benefit the most. They are servants. They're supposed to nail the forgers, but we need to submit anyway. Because those people are operating under authority, and that's just the rules the way they are. If we don't like them, we obey them anyway. It is necessary to submit to the authorities, not because of possible punishment, because of conscience. I want to be honoring to the Lord. I don't want to be paranoid. Governments are supposed to maintain social order. Do they always do this well? But what a country we live in. You can have all these protesters all over the country and different places around the world, and they're carrying signs and they're protesting, and they can do that. We have freedom of speech, and we have freedom of speech, so we should be able to share Christ with boldness. Conscience, feelings of guilt or living in fear of the boot. Growing up, with my dad especially, I didn't so much ever feel guilty. I was in fear of the boot. Sometimes I got the boot, literally. This is why you pay taxes. For the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give to everyone what you owe him, like Jesus did. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. No matter what you think about a president, past or present, president walks in the room. Should we all rise? It is the custom of the nation. So because of the president's position, then that position calls for a certain amount of honor and respect. We're respecting the position, even if we're not respecting the person who's holding that position. If you owe taxes, pay them. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned this before, I knew a man, I haven't talked to him in years, who developed this system of putting money in trusts to avoid paying taxes. What he was doing and purporting was illegal. There are ways use trusts. You can avoid all kinds of taxation on that, especially if it's inheritance taxes and things like that. Use a trust. But his were called abusive trusts, and he kept on teaching them, Constitution. The guy with the guy with the hammer, the mallet, in the courtroom. Okay, he's got the authority. Respect him. If you pay, this guy would pay taxes to the IRS that would come knocking on his door, and he would pay with checks on closed accounts. Okay, you don't play with these people. Okay, he was not showing respect or honor. Pay your business taxes. I think that's referred to as revenue. But again, fill out the forms and get every savings that you possibly can. Respect literally is fear. Understand and accept the power of the people in authority. Rise in respect, if nothing but for the office itself. Go to Acts 23. Paul is in a difficult situation. He has ridiculous charges being brought against him. I'm going to jump back up to verse 30 of chapter 22. The next day, since the commander wanted to find out exactly why Paul was being accused by the Jews, he released him and ordered the chief priests and all the Sanhedrin to assemble. Then he brought Paul and had him stand before them. Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, "My brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day." At this, the high priest Ananias ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Boom! Then Paul said to him, "God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there and judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck." Paul's pretty upset. He gets punched in the mouth. It's an illegal thing to do. Those who were standing near Paul said, "Oh, you dare to insult God's high priest." "I did not realize he was the high priest, for it is written, 'Do not speak evil about the ruler of your people.'" And then the rest of it is hysterical what Paul does, how he gets out of that situation. But this is one of the reasons we think Paul's eyesight was not very good at this point in his life. Maybe his eyes weren't good enough to recognize who the high priest was. He certainly knew of him. And I'm assuming the high priest is wearing some kind of special garment that says, "Hey, I'm the high priest. Look at my clothes. Acknowledge me." Paul respected the office. Was Paul right to call him out? Yes. Probably not with the anger, and probably not to call him a whitewashed wall. Okay. Paul might... What's that? Yeah. But Paul, it would have been better for Paul to say, "High priest, was it right for you to command that I be struck?" See? But I say, "You whitewashed." Okay. I mean, I can sympathize with that. What if the authority is an evil person like Nero? A wacko person like Nero? Killed people just out of jealousy or paranoia. And he ends up using Christians, soaking them in tar and lighting them on fire, using them to light places in Rome, to light his gardens. We're supposed to obey this guy? Get away with him if you can. But if there's a decree that Nero makes that as a follower of Christ, you can obey it, even if it's wacko. You turn these people over to their master. Nero did not have a good death. Had a worse life. And now he has even a worse eternity. You turn them over to God. Let God deal with them. It is not our job to deal with them. Let's go back here. 1 Samuel chapter 26. In the morning, during the service time, we will get there eventually, I think maybe a week or two. So Samuel 29, 1 Samuel that is. Yeah, 26. Yeah, whatever it says up there, yeah. It's one of those days I'm struggling with my lenses here. Yeah, for this I do. Yeah, these are the reading ones. All right, yeah, so 1 Samuel. Oh, someone just read that for me.
But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who can put out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?" And David said, "As the Lord lives, the Lord will strike him, or his day will come to die, or he will go down into battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should put out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But take now the spear that is at his head and the jar of water, and let us go." So David took the spear and the jar of water from Saul's head, and they went away. No man saw it or knew it, nor did any awake, for they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen upon them.
So David does not take out Saul, who is completely unjust and wicked toward David in every respect. And then there's that time where Saul goes into the cave to relieve himself. He wasn't taking a nap, as I was taught. He was going in there to relieve himself. And while he's doing that, of course, he takes off his kingly robe and lays it aside. And David cuts off a corner. Remember how guilt-ridden David was about this? It's like, oh no, what have I done? So if David wouldn't do this, then we should not either. I had it up there. Didn't even know it. Okay, just concluding thoughts. Obey the government. Speed limits. Yeah, nah. Um, okay, on speed limits, I freely confess that when I'm driving 55 on these side roads, I'm so relaxed. You know, um, my dad taught me, oh, you can go 7 miles an hour over and you'll be okay. So, I take it to 5. I obey the spirit of the law. Um, when there's a corridor driving from from Illinois to Michigan, where you're going through places in Indiana, and if you go 55, you are dead. You will get run over by everything, including the motorcyclists. I mean, it's just crazy. The purpose of the speed limit is safety, and so if my obeying the speed limit makes me and others unsafe, well, I'm gonna go at a safe and prudent speed. Okay, but I'm probably making excuses for myself. Pay your taxes. Don't whine if you are punished justly. Appeal to God if you are treated unjustly. Rely on God's sovereignty. And again, the uniqueness of America. Our government is in a document. That's where our government is. It's not in people. It's in the Constitution. So we can control our government by calling our government into accountability to the Constitution, primarily by voting. Okay. Vote and run. Okay, yes, nice little double entendre there. Yes, yes, yeah. I always love those people. You elect the wrong person. I'm going to leave the country, and the person is like going, okay, yeah. What a good idea. No, vote and run for office. If we don't like what the government's doing, run. Now, myself, I don't know. I sometimes think it might be fun to run for office. I couldn't do both jobs, though. I would have to abandon pastoring if I were going to do that, in all honesty. But my son Joshua, he should be running for Caleb. These guys should be running for office because they're so good, and you can't pull the wool over their eyes because they're so smart. But Father God, we are thankful for our government. We are thankful, Lord, how a system has been set up where our leaders are accountable to us. Father, give us the boldness to know, to study, to understand, and to vote out the rascals who need to be voted out and to vote in the ones who should be. And Lord, we do pray that we would see our government turn to you in our governing rulers. In Jesus' name, amen.